my thing. I'm like struggling really, really, really bad in Unity. I can't
Okay.
figure anything out.
What's that?
I can't figure like anything out in Unity. Like I tried to follow like the thing, and I did all the steps to where, like when you click on it, something happens, and it's just like not working at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Okay.
Also, am I gonna get like docked to 10% if I turn it in like after 8, but like before 11:59? Because I don't get home till like 7:30, and I'm gonna try to start getting it done on the weekends if I have time. But yeah.
No. What happens at 11:59?
Um. Well, that's usually when like most assignments are due. It's just yours are due at 8
Right.
instead.
Yeah. So nothing happens at 11:59.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I turned mine in late, and just like no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yes, I would get used
I'm not
to
used to
doing
turning
stuff on
things in
different.
late and having them be not finished and stuff. This is new.
Right? No, he's new at it.
I'm a goody two shoes. I get my stuff done. I get it turned in early or on time. I'm not used to having it not done and late.
I'm trying to be a goody two shoes as much as I can.
I've always been a goody two shoes.
I've had it one whole my entire life, and because I always do it with combinations for
Okay.
and I use the I keep putting things off.
Yeah, literally the only reason why I've succeeded in school is because of my ADHD meds.
That's yeah, definitely.
Like, I've tried to get off of them a few times.
Oh my gosh.
Except for when
I cannot, like, whenever I'm off my medication, I'm literally just like bouncing off the.
I don't. I mean, I know plenty of people have done jury duty, but I've never known anyone who's gotten stuck in like a real trial where like it got sequestered for months on end in doing something.
my prescription changed. I got my prescription changed. I have glasses, and now I'm like, I have a headache because I have to get used to it.
All right, here we go. Let's go early.
I literally have a headache.
Andre,
Hi everyone.
go.
This is my
Here he is.
stuff for the week. The Unity project that we were working on. It was fairly simple to get through. I ran into I ran into some issues while working on it, but it does seem to have all the functionality that were required while working on it.
Did I download the wrong video, or does this is one from the previous week?
Yeah, it's from the previous week.
That's from the previous week. Okay, let me grab the one from this week. Ba-ba-ba. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. One more time with feeling. Andre.
Hi everyone. This is my Unity project for the week.
Your audio is worse.
Demonstrate what everything does. This is my character saying hello to you. There she is. thing over there, sitting on the desk.
Yeah, so I think maybe you recorded the laptop audio instead of the microphone or something, but we can make it out, but just barely.
Every time you press the multiply button, I know it's pretty
And then your computer audio is really loud coming into the OBS,
silly,
but it makes that sound effect very visible.
but that is what basically everything in terms of interactivity for the scene. All the assets in here were made by me. I made this little guy last night, and I made her in a personal project a couple weeks ago. And this one was more recently for a just to make some pixel art, and then I animated a blinking animation and a smile. So how I approached making this was I definitely knew that I wanted to try importing a model with pre-made animations. I know we're not quite there yet, but I just thought it would be fun to do, and also because I already had the asset. And
Okay, this is great. I mean, everyone thought it was great. Andre has taken classes with me for 2 semesters. He took character animation and 3D modeling already, so he's just already had some stuff in the can there. So didn't expect that from everybody, but it looks really great, and I love the squeaky sound.
I guess creative decisions was I just wanted this to be some kind of like to mimic a game, I suppose. I know this is technically a game, but just to mimic the idea of it, with how she says it playing in hello animation. I had original ideas to draw up a dialogue box, but I thought that would take a bit too long since don't really know how to do that.
Dialogue box. Well, even just a word bubble. How would you make a word bubble just appear in space first? What would it be?
I would think maybe like a sprite.
Yeah, a sprite, right? Like the PNG with, transparent around the word bubble, right? You get your word bubble to pop up. Getting the text to pop up is a little bit different. We'll discuss that. But, just having the word bubble pop up, you could certainly do that. And at the very least, you could just, make your sprite write whatever you wanted on it and just turn it on and turn it off.
But in terms of audio, it seems I have forgotten to add the loop function to the ambient music. Oops. But
Oh, so that sound was your ambient sound. Okay, so it's just in OBS. I thought you were recording the wrong microphone. I think you just have your microphone turned down too far, and maybe this is plenty loud, your desktop audio, because the squeaky sound and that air conditioner noise that you had for ambient music was super.
just some basic low droning from an air conditioner, I guess, and I added a splat noise because 1, he's made of goop, and 2, I just thought it would be funny.
He said goop or boop? We'll go with goop.
But yeah, that is all my interactivity for the week. There is 3D animation, 2D animation, and the imported assets.
All right. Well done, Andre. Everyone thought so. Looks beautiful, but, again, I wasn't expecting that from everybody. Andre has a bunch of this is not his first rodeo. So that was his. Here's Alexis.
Hello. So
Hey.
sorry for turning this in so late. I hit multiple snags, and it took me hours to fix. And
Yes, working early and often in this class will be a good pattern, right? Because that gives you time to answer questions, right? I mean, in this class, this is the trade-off I've decided we'll make. We're going to make cooler stuff, but because we're making software, it is much more possible in this class to get really hung up. Like whereas in Blender, you could just always pull the parachute and just make a new Blender file, right? Here, you can definitely run into some things. But if you ask the question early, then we can use.
I wanted it to at least somewhat be working when I turned it in. And so for my interactive element, whistling, the dog animation, and then the stick dropping.
Oh, super cute.
I did have issues issues was that I can't get the stick to like fall over. But like I got it to drop back.
It's tough to tell. I don't think you have the stick selected, but that is a weird thing that happens with the physics simulation. If it's not angled and it's facing straight up and down, you drop it right down, like, and there's no other forces that get applied to it, then it just sort of stands on the end, which is, like a weird situation. The easy solution to that is just rotate the spawn, so it's just not spawning perfectly straight, or just put anything here for it to fall on, and it'll fall over a little bit, right? Or just grab the plane and angle it just a couple degrees. That'll make it fall over, right? It's all too perfect, right? If we just make it, it's like a perfectly flat ground, so flat and so level that in the real world it doesn't exist, which is why that if we drop a stick, it won't land on its end in the real world.
Faster. Originally it was dropping very slow to where it'd still be up here by now, and so I found out how to speed that up, but I just can't get it to fall over and drop to the floor like I wanted to. And then so audio being for whistling, the dog barking, and then the background for you. So
Cute, you did it. Yeah, that's great. Pixel art in there, in Unity, in 3D. Yeah, so you got everything's related. You got some media and you made it interactive. Mission accomplished. Well done. Here's Maya's.
Okay. Here's my project.
Okay, so you guys are now doing what I'm doing. You also have desktop audio, right? And so here, right, you can probably just back this off a little bit, right? And that way it won't be so loud in the recording, right? It'll be plenty, however loud you want it to be live. But then, because we just run into the problem then that you're going to continue to talk and the music will be blaring, so it'll just be tough to hear. But everyone's dealing with that this.
So basically, what I wanted to do was hit like a like button on Instagram posts because with my identity, mine is more like a graphic design, social media advertisement. And what I wanted to do was to hit like a like button and like have hearts flying around the post. And I made this post last semester with my graphic design class. The noise I wanted to do was have like a mouse click button because I feel like back then
Oh, that was the sound effect? It wasn't just like your mic picking up and you clicking the mouse. You also had a sound of a mouse being clicked?
you hear the mouse click button when you hit a like. And originally I wanted to, every time you scroll, you hit the like button, but I wasn't too sure how to make like a Instagram post like scroll. But yeah, I don't have any questions, so thank you.
Did you say you weren't sure how to do like a scroll thing?
Yeah, like if you click, like you can find a post and you can like scroll.
Like to make it interactive, to like scroll it yourself? Yeah. Yeah, you'd have to click and hold. But you could just animate it up and down at this point, right? Like it would just move. So that would be one thing. And then here we have the on collider click, right? And so yes, it's like a button, but in this case, to make it look more like what you're talking about, you could take is that the mesh, the heart? Yeah, you could take the mesh and make it both the thing that shoots out and the button, right? So that would be local, like rather than having it be, like later I'll ban the default Unity button so that we're not making a bunch of stuff with these like really boring gray buttons in it, right? So you either need to design your own button or use something else as a button, right? And so this would be one of those things, because usually when you do the social media thing, like the button itself is a heart, right? But yeah, great. That worked really well. Yeah, and like a different sort of, so the term here, as you're looking around online, is user interface and user experience design. You familiar with that term? Right, so that's, you know, sort of the professional term for the people doing this kind of app layout and interactivity design, right? So those are listed as UI UX jobs. And yeah, a lot of what we're doing this semester. Very cool. Montana.
Hi. Oh my gosh, it's me. The person whose thing always breaks. I have another broken one for you. So here we have this beautiful scene that I made with 4 different references in it. And I'll go ahead and play it for you, and then I'll tell you what it's supposed to be. So let's go into game mode. Uh-oh.
Was that the bite of 87?
So that's what it looks like now. It's supposed to have the things where you click on.
Okay, so what's the audio? It's who?
Markiplier. He's
Okay.
a YouTuber. It's from one of his videos. It's a very famous thing that he says, and it's a scene from a video game that he's playing.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, "Was that the bite of 87?"
Which video game is he playing?
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, okay. Does that take place in 1987 or? Okay. Well, I mean, I know it's not from 1987. Like, is it set in 1987?
It's actually set in 1983,
Oh.
but at the time we didn't know that, and we thought it was 87, so it's 87.
Okay. And it's Garfield, right? Is that Garfield?
Yes.
Eating Minecraft guy?
It is the crime child from the same game.
Okay. and the mask people?
And they're like the bullies who shoved the kid into Garfield's mouth.
Okay. From the same game, or like that's your contribution?
The bullies and the crime child are from the same game, yeah.
Okay.
Garfield replaces the character in that scene where it was, instead of Golden, I think it was like Fredbear. It's now replaced with Garfield.
Okay. And then who is the person in the upper left?
Mr. Boss from Smiling Friends.
Oh, okay. I know Smiling.
Garfield's beautiful head here. He's supposed to chomp down, and when you click on Mr. Boss over here, he's supposed to say the line. It's not working. I have the things.
Okay, so this is Mr. Boss. You have the sprite renderer. You have the on-click collider, and you have the animator.
And
You have the sound.
here,
And so what does it look like Montana's missing? On-click collider, sprite renderer, animator, sound source, audio source. You're missing the collider. This script only works if it's got a collider, right? Fritz was 100.
and here,
Or not was, you still.
like this, these things, and I have these things.
This all looks really good. You're just missing that one part, right? And so I'm trying to communicate that with the name of the script, collider. But this animation controller.
And same goes for here. It's just not doing it. Like here. Let's give you another look.
I suspect it's probably the same issue here. There's no collider.
This one specifically. See, it's
Was that the bite of 87?
just not working. So that's fun. Those are the interactive elements. I made everything in Photoshop. Um, then I brought it in here. I stole the sound effect from YouTube, MP3, YouTube to MP3. That's how I did that. If someone knows what I did wrong and how I can fix it,
Colliders. You just need the collider, right? Looks like you got everything else set up correctly. I mean, I can't tell for sure, but I think once you just have a collider on there, everything else should work because it looks like you got the events configured correctly. So yeah, you're playing the audio source and you're playing the animation.
Yeah, I'll add it and I'll resubmit it. So I'll get back to you.
Okay. Super. Okay, that's coming along.
Okay, so here's my game. So the first thing I want to point out is I have these bubbles that I drew that spawn in. They're pink and yellow, and there's white as well, and they kind of spawn in at random rates. But what I noticed is that they kind of stop spawning after a while, and I don't really know why. I've tried to troubleshoot, and I just can't figure it out, but I'm happy that they spawn at all, so
Okay.
I like how they look.
I can't. Okay, I think your issue here. So this is the spawner. Diagnose Colette's issue. This script does spawning, so correct. What about this one?
And that song for way too long.
What's that?
Actually, wait. No. So it's because it cancels each other out because the minimum is 30 and the maximum is 30, so it doesn't have any breathing room.
No, that's not it. That just means it wouldn't. It's not going to It's not going to randomize, right? The problem is this script is on the spawner object. You don't want to destroy the spawner. You destroy the spawn, right? Because we don't want them to build up too much in the scene. So we need to get rid of the old spawns. You don't want to put the time destroy on the spawner, right? Because you want that to continue to exist so that if you want to spawn more stuff later in the game, you can, right? And so that's exactly what happened there.
And then I kind of just have them kind of fall in and out of the scene. They kind of just look like they're floating in. And then I have these two characters here that I drew myself, and when you click on them, they both make a noise, so just like that. And then I drew the background as well and made this little scene, and I put audio in that I found on YouTube under the royalty-free music, and I also have an ambient noise of like ocean waves because the scene I wanted to make is kind of like a beach house area, so you can kind of tell from the music and the background setting. And then I have this stool I made in Blender. I'm not really super advanced in Blender, so I didn't do anything too crazy, but I did make that and I put the material on it. It's kind of like a leather material. And then I have these image sequences I drew of bouncing balls that are bouncing on the stool, and they're both moving at different speeds, random speeds that I use the script for. And also I had the bubbles I drew. They do disappear over time. They get destroyed, but you can't really tell because they aren't in the scene visible. So, but yeah, that's it. So these are my two characters, and then I drew the scene, and it's not as amazing as I would hope, but I like it. I think it came out decent.
Looks great. Again, we are in week 4 here, right? Like most of you, almost no one had even used this program up until now. That looks great. Yeah, you just put the time destroy. The time destroy script, I hoped was properly titled, right? It has the word destroy in it, right? So you should check yourself before you throw it on an object. You're like, wait, do I want to destroy this object at some point during the game, right? And for structural things like spawners and, the scenery and stuff, like probably not. So, cool. Jacob.
All right, hello AVC200, good to be back. So here is my little interactive art scene. We'll go ahead and click play here so you'll see. First off, we've got a little spinning brain in this guy's head, a little cube brain, and then we've got our interactive signs off to the right. So when you click on them, they move with hand-drawn 2D animation. You'll see you have little particle effects coming out too. Those particle effects are the main part where like a spawner and like time destroy and random speed are implemented. You can see there that they animate at different speeds every time they come out when they're instantiated. So you're having a look at the scene here now, kind of looking at how I set it up. We've got all of our sprites and everything lined up. You can see the outline on him is actually a separate sprite for like layering purposes. And you can see here the animations themselves are also their own like separate layers. I hand animated these in OpenToons, which was a lot of fun, but a lot of work. I was hoping to get a couple more signs in, but I could only manage the 2. So the idea with the scene is to be kind of like a sort of like an animated like interactive menu. Like this would be the kind of menu where like you're affecting the character's different stats and giving them features. You know, the guy would have something.
Right. So super stylized buttons in this case, right? Unlike the button, like the super boring default Unity button, right? And this kind of thing, right? UI, UX, but specifically for games, especially in bigger games, this is a huge thing, right? My good friend is playing, what is it? Metaphor ReFantazio. It's like a RPG-ish thing it came out in the last year. But anyways, the user interface in that game, this reminds me a little bit of it, is the name is quite a lot. Yeah, this is a bunch of it, right? So the Metaphor ReFantazio interface, at points it gets a little, obviously like a user interface, but at other times it's like very stylized graphic design. Like these are the menu items you're sort of flipping through over here. Yeah, I think, is this the same company that made those games? Yes. Yes, Atlas is involved in, the main publisher is Sega, but then after that, Atlas. So yeah, definitely the same thing. But yeah, this is like super cool design for a very stylized user interface.
That helps him see better or whatever, or affects his heart, yada yada, whatever, that kind of idea. And you can see here we're having a look in a second at the sprite animation a little more closely. So yeah, that was made as a prefab, and there's just a bunch of different spawners around each of the signs that instantiate this little guy. Yeah, so we got all of that there, and then you can see here we've got our
Great. So bring in sequential frame-by-frame animation from OpenToons in here. Just a pile of PNGs. Doesn't matter where they came from. You can put
Polyhaven textures, right? So the background has a texture like a tile floor on it, and then the brain here, it's like a corrugated metal texture. And what's interesting is I actually flipped the normals on it, so you're getting back face culling on the front faces, so it gives it this kind of weird inverted effect when it's spinning, which I think is pretty cool. Then now we're looking here at the audio. So I went for kind of like semi-industrial, like clinky clank kind of sound design. You can see here we've got like a train yard for our ambience, and we've got these little metal sound effects every time we click on the signs, because obviously they're metal, so you want this kind of metallic sound. It's supposed to be like equal parts sort of playful and like spooky or like eerie. Like you're not really sure what's going on. There's a lot of bright colors. And yeah, with the music too, you've got this kind of like fun sort of thumping beat to it, like a little jazzy but also a little spooky weird, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think matches the scene nicely. So Yeah, that's all I have for you guys this week. No questions, I don't think. This was a little easier than last week just because I'm getting a little more used to Unity. This one was a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, everybody's getting more and more used to it, right? Even doing this before the class, if somebody would have presented this to you, it would have been thoroughly confusing. And so now people have some more experience. Awesome. Yeah, that looks fantastic. Here's Fritz.
Here is
So you can just put Fritz on the name. Yeah.
my project. I'm just gonna play it and then talk about it afterwards. I don't think I can do both. You can throw tomatoes at him. That's my project. That's all of it. I started with getting the GIF in. This was a nightmare. I don't know why I chose to torture myself in such a way. But I have it all in here. Oodles.
Okay, so you took your whole hand-drawn animation, the entire thing, right? And yeah, okay. That's not how you'd want to do this, right? So in this case, this is why would we want to use PNGs? Again, what do PNGs do that JPEGs do not? Transparency, exactly. Yes, right? And so in your case, you're not using that, right? We're just, here's the whole frame. And so there's a separate system in Unity for just taking a movie file and slapping it on a plane, right? When you want to do that kind of thing, which is what you're doing here with this, right? Now, if something happened, like if you went back in and spit out just these individual characters on their own PNGs so that you could throw a tomato and then that character would go away and leave you the background, then that using the PNGs would make sense, right? Because especially, how big are the PNGs?
I don't remember. The total thing was like 300 megabytes because it was for my animation final last semester. So
Uh-huh.
high quality.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I committed to this, so I can't really go back.
Okay, but you understand why this is, yeah, like this, if you want to play a movie in Unity, you don't do it as an image sequence, right? You bring it in as a movie file, right? The image sequence is for like bytes of animation, right? And so like in an animated character, there would be like the idle loop, right? So it would be like a max of like 24 frames or something like that, right? And then like the punch loop, which would be like 5 frames or something like that. And those would be separate things. But in both those cases, we're cutting out the character, so we need the PNG, and it's not a long thing, right? If the character walks up to something and then sees a movie about the character doing something else, that's an MP4 file, right? And that it just plays on like a plane usually. But I mean, you did the thing, great. But like in this case, it's not the best way to do this in particular thing. It's just because the movie file itself is optimized to show you frames at a specific rate, and here we're just, it's just not the same kind of thing.
Of photos. I had to get this off of my iPad and onto the computer. It was low-key 300 megabytes, so I don't recommend doing this. But once I got that squared away and working, it wasn't too bad. I had to... I messed around with the box collider, but I think it's better if it just plays on its own and you throw tomatoes. I was also gonna try and, like, make my own little tomato in Blender, but I didn't feel like doing that. That was hard, and I wanted to get this done because it is Tuesday morning, and I just finished, so don't really think I have time
But you're editing the tomato explosion into the presentation video.
to play in Blender. All I did was
I made the tomato spawner. You can do a ton of them. That was awesome. It gets a little buggy, but that's probably because I didn't add a button. I just made it so you click on the tomato and it like multiplies. So
Do you have the time destroy on the tomatoes?
I don't think so.
Okay, so that might be the buggy part, right? Because if you keep making more tomatoes, and I didn't watch while you were, yeah, and so this, you can see it happening over here, like this list of new tomatoes just continues to expand there, right? And so, yeah, that's probably a good part.
I made the tomato spawner. You can do a ton of them. That was awesome. It gets a little buggy, but that's probably because I didn't add a button. I just made it so you click on the tomato and it like multiplies. So and then for the audio, I couldn't really figure out Audacity or Audition. It wasn't letting me clip audios, like shorten them or whatever, so I just downloaded Audacity and used that because I'm more familiar with that.
Yeah, fine. Like, I mean, I show everybody Audition because, you know, it's in the stuff, but if you've got, you know, like anything you want to, like, what are you using to edit your presentation video? Yeah, like everyone has their own tools there, so that's, whatever gets.
The settings are the same, it's just not Audition. So that was that. I want to play it again. I love throwing tomatoes at him, it makes me smile. It makes me so happy. Okay, I'm done. I'll stop now.
All right, great. Super. Mission accomplished. And Jenna?
Alright, this is my project. I did like one of my older animations, and just added random stuff. This is a spawn button. I think everything is,
People love this dog. It's a dog, right? That's what we're gonna say? Okay. Creature.
reused except for the like button holders. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah, so this, you know, making a 3D button that animates in Blender, right? So the name for this, where we make the virtual interface look like a real world thing. Anybody know a name for that? Skeuomorphism, right? So the idea that you make a tape player app and then on screen it looks like a tape player. There's no reason why it would need to look like that, right? The reason a tape player looks like a tape player is because that's what tape players needed to physically look like to be engineered to do what they did. But yeah, so this is the idea. Skeuomorphism. Yeah, I know you do not like minimalism.
I made those in Blender. I want to make like something kind of simple. I wanted to make it so like there was a case on it and then it would open, but I'm like, no, that's too much work. And I don't know how to make stuff like the objects transparent. But we'll probably get into that later. But I think the only other thing besides that I made for this project specifically is like the things at the top. I just thought it'd be cool because it looks like they're kind of like falling from the sky. I mean, it's not supposed to be like clouds, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, I like to see the dogs kind of rolling on the ground there and how they fall off. This is I like this one better than the other one, but I feel like
everyone really enjoys pressing these buttons.
Everyone's gonna feel that way, since we got more liberty on this one. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. the music is I used my cousin's music for it. He has a ton of stuff that I could just use for these, but
Okay, as long as he doesn't issue a YouTube takedown notice.
yeah, the only question that I would have would probably be like if it's for the final like game. It's definitely too early to be talking about that, but if it's alright to like think of ideas
It's always all right to
early on, not like things that are too specific, because you know maybe the rubric says that we need stuff that that wouldn't align with that, but yeah, that's about it.
Did she ask a question at some point? Like, yeah, please think of the ideas. Look at the other thing, Jana, to hear that was really great. Like in this view, it looks like this is you know, bunting framing device she has, just infinitely scrolls from right to left. But if you watch this view over here, you'll see that she animated it, but timed the animation so that it only goes so far. And then it's because it's a repeating pattern, when it snaps back over here, it's in the same position. And so, or each individual circle thing is overlapped with one that's there. And so then it just looks like it just keeps
We'll probably
going.
get into that later, but
Right, see it
I
snap
think the
back over
only
here and
other
then
thing
continue
besides
over
that
here.
that I made for this project specifically is like the things at the top. I just thought it'd be cool.
Yeah, so super clever and well done, right? It makes this look sort of like if it's just going to keep scrolling in this direction, you know, how do you do that? Well, I can't have an infinitely large PNG that just, you know, because how long is it going to go on? It just can't just keep scrolling. So, well done, bravo. All right, Punchy. Okay.
For it necessarily, but I could explain some stuff.
Okay, you want to come up here and talk on camera? Press the space bar to play and stop.
Okay. Hi, I'm taking over. I'm taking over this. So this whole thing, I was like struggling so much trying to even get a single thought down. And I was like, oh, I want to do something with my hyperfixation at this point. And I've been desperately trying to figure something out, but I couldn't for the life of me until like last night. I had like a whole entire eureka effect basically. And made this thing. So with every time the gnomes are, you have to click on the sign for the gnomes to spawn and whatnot. I was wanting to make it so that the sprites themselves had actual collision, or where like they wouldn't just clip through, but I don't really know how that was possible.
Okay, pause it once. So you can put a 3D collider on a sprite object.
I think I've only put like a 2D collider.
Right, so yeah, the 2D collider is not going to talk to the 3D colliders, but if you put a 3D collider on a sprite object, then it would keep the things from hitting the little things.
Creatures. But yeah, I got these things off of Polyhaven. It's something I really struggled with here. Was I wanted to, I don't know why Unity is like this, but you can't put multiple sound effects on one object. You can only put one sound effect, which is like one audio source, and it was really annoying me. So I had to, because the slot for this character was already taken up by the blinking sound effect, I had to put it on this one, the screeching sound on this character, because I couldn't figure out how to necessarily, like I tried keying in the audio source, but apparently it was just refusing to play at that time at all, and it was just like pretending that it just didn't exist, no matter how many times I tried to key it. But I also wanted to do the like a randomizer instead of like a random animation speed, where basically it would just play the blinking animation once every a range from like certain seconds or so. Couldn't figure that out because apparently everyone loves to gatekeep on this community. And so I just had to make the animations on my own and tried to make them look more natural and have a natural sort of loop to them. He stays like this for the rest of the video, by the way. He stays like that for the rest of the video, where basically the animations both connected together, but then once the animation is triggered on him, it ends, and then it brings him to a new default state where he's just completely compressed beyond comprehension.
Super. Looks great. I love the sound effect when the gnomes fall from the sky. So I think here, do I have the other one open? No, I don't have the other one open. The other thing you're talking about, so what part, like if I put audio source here, and so then you wanted to put another audio source on the same object?
Yeah, so I could only add it that way, but even then, if I tried to key it to like an animation, it would only key one of the sound effects, not both the sound effects.
Okay. I mean, if we address this,
I tried looking up online, got no answers.
Other than like, oh, just make this script in 17 minutes.
so yeah, they do show up as separate things.
Well, it's more so like I want two different sound effects to play in one animation,
Uh-huh.
and it was just not allowing me to do that.
So you're playing the sound on the timeline, not with the event.
Yes, so like the blinking corresponds with the like animation itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't apparently use two sound slots. I can only use one sound slot for each animation, apparently.
Okay. I'll work up an example on that. I think we can do that, but I'll get it worked out. Yeah, because we can still address them individually as events there. And so, and when this is the sound that plays when the yellow creature gets all messed up, right? And you wanted two sound effects to happen.
I wanted, so like in the sequence, basically, when I clicked on them, there's intentionally a little delay where they blinked one more time and then they turned.
Okay.
So that sound slot for the blinking took up, and then after they stare for a brief moment, then the screech occurs, and I can only have one or the other.
Okay. Let's remove that. Cool. Yeah, that worked out really well. Your eureka moment, whatever creative energy you channeled at that point, try to, bottle that there in terms of reining in the scope of everything, which I think helped a lot in terms of the whole thing. Remember, this is a 200 level class, so some people are coming in with more experience than others, right? But,
I've always wanted to add like randomization to basically everything and having like a random something happening with like idle animations, whatever, because I love making things come to life. But I hate it when people make things complicated or when a program makes it way too complicated than it needs to be.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And the other thing, the sprite so if you have a sprite, let's just go empty game object, we had a sprite, right? So sprite, there we go. Where's this game object? Right here, right? And so it can have, let's put anything on there right now. There we go. So it's a sprite. And then we can add a box collider. Right, and so now this 2D thing, other physics stuff would bounce off of it, right? So that is the other issue there with the gnomes falling. So did you put a box collider on the gnomes or a mesh collider?
I put a mesh collider on
Okay, that's fine for this sort of thing.
I put a cylinder collider on
Okay, well that's different. Cylinder collider is great, right? Because it's that'll be cheap, right? You could have many more gnomes. Mesh collider, especially on something dense like the gnome, would be more expensive.
I saw the polygons in it and I had to decimate it a little bit.
Yeah, because I believe that original model comes from like a photogrammetry scan, so it'll be very dense. Ezra. Nice.
Alright, this is my Media in Unity art scene project. Interactive
Yeah, what do we call these things? All right.
scene. Okay, play that. So, to create an interactive experience, I decided to add background music, ambient music, and sound effects. So this stop or pocket watch the sound effect is triggered by just a click, and it just rattles. And then the butterfly moves, and I use the randomization speed animation scripting to make the speed of the movement different, because butterflies, they don't move uniformly, they have like different speeds, so I thought it'd be cool to add that on there. And then I used a PNG sequence of the flower growing out of the ground, and I just spawned them anywhere, just randomly. And then I used the destroy script to make them die, basically.
Yeah, wonderful, right? We see at the beginning some sunflowers pile up, but then this list doesn't get crazy long because they're being pruned.
When it reached the limit of, the limit of how much spawned. And then I used the 3D like blocks or cubes just to make the terrain feel more alive. But yeah. I'm trying to think, what else did I miss? Yeah, I had a lot of fun making this. I wish I could get a little bit more creative in my projects. I think I'm gonna try to do so more. As I learn more things, I can definitely play around with more things moving forward, but I had a lot of fun. So
This is very creative as is. Super. Well done. Yeah, you clearly took like an existing piece of art, sort of cut it into some pieces here and made that work. Very, yeah, I mean, the sort of warping on the watch obviously is very Salvador Dali-ish. Very nice. Very, very nice, Ezra. KJ.
All right, hello again. This is an update video.
This is the second one. I don't know if KJ's on the stream or not. Well, we'll just find out whether we had to watch the previous episode.
Right after I finished my last video, I figured out how to get my radio to work. So, here we go. We're gonna go into the game. It's raining again. Listen to this. And it does the animation, and it'll play the song. Yippee! And you can rain disco balls with music playing in the background from your radio. Pretend you're this guy looking out at a cool castle. That is awesome. So, yeah, this is an update video. This is part 2.
Okay, super. You got everything happening there. Whatever problems you had in part 1, you clearly solved them. Yeah, I didn't see if the sphere started dying at some point, but they might have. So here, another thing where you could, sort of fake the 3D-ness of it, right? Like we talked about putting the collider on a sprite, or you could just put the collider on nothing, right? If you need an invisible wall, you just make a blank game object with a collider on it. And so, for instance, KJ could have done that at the bottom and use this to sort of make a floor, so it looks like the disco balls are falling onto the floor of that 2D image that he has there, right? As a way to do that. Great. You guys it's really turned out well. Arlenka.
here is my scene for the week. Sorry, this is gonna be a short video because I'm very sick.
Please feel better.
I didn't use any of my own artwork because my artwork generally takes a while to make because of all the stuff that I have to do. So I just downloaded some sprites and things from the Unity repository. There's 2 sprite packs. One is the environment, the second is the little dog, and then of course the 3D assets from Polyhaven, I think. Here's my interactions. So for the audio,
Okay, yeah, so you got your desktop audio coming in hot there.
Flowers does have 30 seconds. There's also the speed script that's going on that randomizes the speed. Just give it a second. It's running the same number. There we go.
Okay, we couldn't really hear much of anything you were saying there at the end, but it looks like everything went pretty well there, and that dog is really great. Seems like there's a bunch of cat noise in the background, which motivates the dog barking. Really, really good. So just in the OBS, just turn down the desktop audio a little bit there. But I'm sure it'll be better next week. All right, here's...
This is my little interactive scene here. I will demonstrate it here in action. If I press play, there we go. So she starts on entry doing that. I couldn't figure out how to get it to stop on entry, but I got it to work where she would jump when I clicked. There's also the sound effect. I got light off and light on. I couldn't really think of something to spawn in. Nothing really made sense. I was gonna do roses, like roses coming on stage, but I couldn't find any roses that in Polyhaven, but I guess I could have done that in 2D since I brought in this sconce right here. So perhaps I will do that. And yeah, so this is my way that I did it was I did the sprite sheet method. I have this ballerina that I created in Illustrator, but I obviously rasterized it and exported it as PNG. It's really low quality. I'm not sure why. I think it's because like the Illustrator document was really small. Maybe started.
Yeah, I mean that would be the first place I would look. What was the pixel resolution of the canvas?
Started off as 8.5 by 11, so maybe that's small. But yeah, so yeah, I'm really happy with what I was able to make. I kind of wanted everything to match, like in some way. So I brought in this background, I brought in the sconce and kept everything really clean. I added like the ballerina music and class ambiance. I also added the wooden floor. I think the scale is a little bit too big. I also have the other things that I made over there. But yeah, so I think the scale is too big, but I'm not sure how to fix that in Unity. And then I just...
on the scale of the material here, right? So that's in the material. Select it, select the object, material, tiling, right? You can affect the tiling there. I think that's what you're referring to. So in the material.
Integrated the audio into my scene using the sound folder. I have a few stuff that I did, a few things that I did, and I just dragged the main music into there and the ambiance in there. And then for my ballerina here, I have the whoosh audio right here that I got from Pixabay, I think that's what it was. And I did it like this. Hopefully that's correct. But that's the only way I could get it to work. I kind of wanted to, like, I have this other one that I wanted to play for when she falls or like lands on the floor, and then when she got up. But I couldn't figure out how to do that, and it was taking me a lot of time. So I just said, "I wish is enough." But yeah, it was really fun, and it's all right. Goodbye.
All right. Well done, Alexis. That worked out really well. We almost got everybody. I already saw Ezra's. Let me just double check. Saw Fritz. Tanner? We haven't seen this.
This is Tanner McMillan. I think I figured out most of the stuff with the media part. I was able to import an asset from Blender and import audio, and they convert the PNGs I found into sprites. I also animated the Firefly moving, just kind of using the same principles that we worked on a couple weeks back. I'm having trouble with the scripting. For whatever reason, I cannot get the scripts to work. I would appreciate like a demonstration of that actually for the lecture. If we could go over that again, if we have time. I think I've really figured out the importing media part. The audio source, I just created an audio source to generate a sound of the waterfall falling, and obviously but yeah, I imported a material off of Polyhaven. It was really easy. I think that I'm kind of getting the hang of it, but yeah. Bye.
Okay. I wish we could see exactly what you're doing with the scripts there. That would be useful. Yeah, grabbing the metallic map from Polyhaven and throwing it onto the default metallic channel is going to do something, but it's not going to do what the metallic map is actually intended to do, because this is actually two maps jammed together. So keep that in mind. And then here, you did take the emission map and put it on emission. That's good. But you need to actually crank up the emission in order to see anything. So little two things there. Yeah, we'll do some more script application here in a minute. All right, Tanner, Punchy, Ezra, KJ, Arlenka, Alexis, Andre, other Alexis, Maya, Tana, Colette, Jacob. That's it. All right. Okay. All right. So here, Monday we spent a whole bunch of time being able to do some rudimentary modeling things. This week I will give you a new project. Okay. So do not work in old project. Okay. Because this new project will have a bunch of scripts already imported and they'll be there. So there's some other table setting things I've done here that are you will not be able to make work unless you use the project I hand off to you. Everybody understand that? Okay. So with that in mind, you'll be starting with this first person example scene as a way to get going. So we're going to bring this stuff in, and the way we ended up, exploring our assets on Monday, I thought we'd take this week and next week and put together something where we're walking around in first person. And so here, let's look at what we have here, the newest thing being the player. And so there's a bunch of stuff going on here. let's look at the necessary things. So we've got on the player, right? So this is going to be the viewpoint from which we're actually looking at everything here. There's the character controller component. This is the Unity component for, it's just basic starting point stuff for character controller stuff. Doesn't do a whole lot by its own, but once it's augmented with some other things, it does stuff. Player input is a separate component that's referencing a bunch of the input. Next week's the short week. So I'll bring my PlayStation controller next week. With this is what's referred to as the new Unity input system. If you plug in your PlayStation controller, I don't have an Xbox, but I'm pretty sure the other students may work. Like if we have it plugged in via USB, the advantage to using this is that in addition to the WASD controls to move around, you can also just use your controller. Yeah.
You have Monday off, right?
Yeah, we're Mondays off. Yeah. And then this character controller FP, this is the script that's actually controlling the first person, the settings for the first person controller. Okay, and so if I select, let me turn that off for a second, and select this over here. I like to move this stuff up to the top. There we go. I'm gonna put the player up here. Okay, and here is, let's delete this random junk I've made. Okay, and I'm just gonna move this for now. So here, if I click on the player, you'll see that what we have, right? Essentially, we'll be inhabiting this empty capsule here, which is used for collision purposes. And also notice that now the camera, as I believe I described earlier, is there is no main camera up at the top. If you unfold under player, there's a camera underneath the player, right? So it's a child, meaning that, you know, the camera now are essentially the eyes that we're looking through as we're moving around. And so if I hit play now, we have typical first-person controls. So I'm able to use the mouse and look around, and also use the WASD to start moving and do all the stuff. Notice that I ran into this, but over here I went through the wall. Why do you think that is? On the wall, yeah, because there's no collider on this wall yet, right? So over here, I put a collider on this, and that allows me to interact with it in first-person view here. But over here, I haven't properly configured this prefab yet, and so, you know, we go right through it while we're working around. So, yeah, it's your typical WASD, and then spacebar jumps. And so the let's look at some of the settings here. The character controller stuff, this one and the third person one that we'll use later. There's a lot of settings, but hopefully not too much. Let's just look at some of the important stuff first. Is that in order to jump, you need to know when you are on the ground. And so this allows us to explore a new organizational thing in Unity, which I would write down in my notes. How do we understand groups of things in Unity? There's a couple techniques. Tags, not tags, tags. You can tag objects in Unity. And then also you can use layers, okay? So this gets a little confusing. We've talked about layers before with sprites, sorting layers. That controls what's in front of what. That is totally separate from these layers. These layers don't really have anything to do with rendering. These are just for grouping objects, okay? Like we're essentially just saying that all of these are in a category. They're in a layer together, okay? It doesn't say anything about their visual alignment or rendering. So they should really use a different word, but they don't, okay? Because when we talked about layers with the sprites, that makes sense because it's like layers in Photoshop. You put things in front of other things. Here, not so much. So we have tags and layers. So let's point out some of the important things here. The player object needs to be tagged player, and it will be in the default when you open up the scene, right? So that it's tagged player. In order to do the thing I was talking about at the very top, the ground plane needs to be on the ground layer, okay? And that allows the player to, the code in the first person controller to know when you've left the ground and when you come back to the ground. This essentially prevents two things. One is jumping off things that are not ground, and also it allows for, it prevents double jumping or triple jumping, right? So that if you press the space bar again when you're in the air, by default, you won't jump again because it's turned off while you're in the air. Yes?
Are there any pros or any cons between flip-flopping between those two?
What do you mean flip-flopping?
Like, do you have to use one or the other, or do you have to use both?
Oh, for tags versus layers? For the most part, layers are used for like things that persist in the structure of the space. So like the floor, the ground, right? And then tags are usually player, enemy, enemy 2, that kind of thing. Like things, play game objects that sort of, yeah, but there's no, that's sort of the culture of doing it. It's not the technical limitation, okay? So, yeah, in a lot of instances, in these simpler situations, could I do it with tags or layers? Probably both in a lot of instances, right? But when things would get bigger, then they're separated out. And so they're up here next to each other, right? And so the player is tagged player, and then if I click on the plane here, the bottom part, you'll see that it's in the ground layer, okay? And so that, when I look at the first-person controller here and come over to the, oh yeah, ground detection, ground layer. Ideally, it'll work with everything, but ideally we want it set to ground so that it's just working on the ground, okay? Now, again, this will be in the project I hand off to you, but there'll be these layers by default, and if you need to, you can add as many other layers as you need to continue to organize things as you see fit. We don't need to do any of that this week, but just know that these, in order for objects to identify other objects, most often you're not doing it by the name of the object. That tends to be a slower way to go about it, right? When you search for things, you're not searching for an object, name this, you're searching for an object with this tag on it. Okay, and so that's in place. The door here that we made last time that we can walk through, let's look at that. That has the mesh collider on it. Why does it have the mesh collider? Because it has, a hole in it there, right? We could put the box collider on it, but then we won't be able to walk through the hole. Over here, let's go ahead and look at the wall. I'm going to double click on it. And so here's the wall we made before, and it's got the mesh renderer, the wall, and the material. And under add component, we will put box. And so now that's on there. We just made that change to the prefab, right? And so that means now when I come back up here, I should be able to not walk through those walls. Let's see. Where am I? There I am. Okay. And let's get over here. And yeah, I can't go through the walls now. I can go over to, but this one. Nope. Okay. Great. The player back here. The main things to look at now. player speed and player velocity, how quickly we're going to change speed, and whether or not we can control ourselves when we jump into the air. We're not going to use any of the sprint stuff this week. We're just moving around. Jump height, if we were to make this, I don't know, 8, and now I walk back in. Let's see. There we go. And there we go. I can jump much higher. Let's see. Let's fix these pillars and then test something else here. So this pillar, again, I'll come in and look at the prefab. Is that the prefab? Yes, this is the prefab. And so here, we want the capsule collider. Let's see. Actually, let's remove that. I'm going to go with the mesh in this instance. I believe the mesh collider does more than it used to keep things. Let's do that. All right. And so now let's make sure that we can not run into the pillars. Yeah, there we go. And now with my super jump, can I get onto the pillar? I can, but I actually was on that door. There we go. And yeah, I can get off of this now. Okay. Anything else we need to take care of right now? No. We should leave the rest of the controls alone for now. Down here, same things we can take advantage of later. These are all what? What are all these things? Events, right? And so it's possible to have things happen every time we jump, every time we land, every time we start moving, when we get onto a steep slope, if we use a teleporter or something like that, right? So those are all events. They're, ready to be configured. Okay, let's not jump like crazy. I'm going to put that back at whatever the default was. Cool. Okay, that's coming along. Let's look at a few other things. So here, all of the scripts that we're going to be using are in this folder. And so this is the main overarching system we'll be using throughout the semester going forward, right? There's a bunch of scripts that are designed to work together. The event game toolkit, they're all connected by events, which is why I spend so much time teaching everybody about events. The scripts themselves are in the runtime folder, and they're organized into different subfolders there, but you shouldn't search for them this way. We're just going to call out a few, and then we'll go from there. So for instance, let's do something here. Let's have a light. And so I'll go ahead and let's make a light object. There we go, point light. And let's move that somewhere over here, up. And maybe make it a little orange. Maybe make it a little bit brighter. Maybe turn on shadows. Yes, the player will not cast shadows right now, but we're just going to live with that. There we go. Okay, so we've got this light here, and we'll say that this is, room light. Great. Okay, so now let's do something. We've been using events, and we've been using the on-click collider, right, where we use a collider to sense a click. Here we can start to use colliders to know when our player is in a specific area. So for instance, I'll make a new empty here. I'll bring this over, and then we'll do this thing I was just talking about. We'll put a box collider in here, and we'll start to label this light trigger, and we'll have it, let's say fill up the room a little bit more. So I'm not going to scale. When you have these empty ones like this, you want to use the size of the collider thing, not the scale of the game object. It's just a better general practice. So we'll do that, and this. There we go. And move this over. I don't know how I made this. Oh, I was just dragging stuff into the scene, which is why that's a little weird. Okay, so there's the light trigger. Good. Okay, so now your new favorite script, input trigger zone. So this does a bunch for us. First of all, this is new huge piece of information to put in big letters on your notes, right? And so we have a collider. It has two modes. Mode number one, it just works as a physics collider, meaning stuff bounces off of it. Like we've been doing. We do this on the floor, right? Mode number two is that you can use it as a trigger. The trigger means that you are no longer using it for physics. No physics, okay? Objects will just pass through it. But it essentially functions as a hitbox now, so that you can know when other stuff is in that trigger zone, trigger area, right? For right now, we'll just use boxes pretty much, right? And then we'll be able to know when something does a few things. When it enters, when it is inside, you know, like we're already camped out inside, and when we exit the trigger zone. And so with those three pieces of information, we can do a lot, right? Think about how much you guys are already doing, just essentially turning things on and off, right? We've gotten a lot of mileage out of that. You can take the same approach here. Okay, but this trigger, ends up being a very important checkbox. If we look at input trigger zone, so for instance, this one needs a collider, so this script will not work unless it's on an object that has a collider and that collider is labeled as a trigger. Okay, because just as an example right now, this is not labeled as a trigger, and so it is in the first mode. It is working as a physics thing. And so watch what happens now. If I try to enter this, let me make the window a little bit bigger. Let me figure out where I am. Okay, there I am. I can't go any further. I've run into the invisible box I just put in this room, right? Because I didn't check is trigger, and it is in physics mode. And the first person controller participates in the physics, and so it is not able to go through. Now, if I go back to the light trigger and check is trigger, I can now, once again, enter the room. Because it's no longer being used for physics, it's being used for mostly game logic, right? And so let's use it for game logic. We'll make this light turn on when we enter the room. So let's go look at the light trigger. And yeah, I tried to make these things as clear as I could. So if you have some feedback about that, let us know, because I can reconfigure them to some extent. And so what is this going to do? When something with this tag, the player, right? It's important to filter with a tag. Otherwise, if like something blew up and a random piece of shrapnel just rolled into the room and it wasn't filtering by tag, the light might turn on, right? I mean, maybe that's good or bad, whatever it is what you're doing. But in our case, most of the time, you want it set the player, right? Do something when the player gets there. And so when the player enters this trigger, this event happens right here. And so what do we want to do on this event? Turn on the light. The easiest way is to just turn on the object, the game object that has the light, right? So here's the light. I'm going to turn it off, and then I'm going to come back to light trigger, and I'm going to hit plus on the enter, grab the room light, put it in there, and then just go to game object, set active, yes, right? And let's test it out. Let's save, there we go, and let's do it. So now if we walk into the room, there we are, let's around, boom, the light turns on. Woo! By the same token, if we want the light to turn off when we leave the room, we come over to light trigger. We hit plus, right? And so now we can do all that toggling stuff we've been doing with 2 buttons, like on button, off button. Now, for instance, you can, going in turns on, going out turns off. So we talk to the same object again. We talk to just the game object, set active, and we turn it off, right? So turn on when we come in, turn off when we leave. And so this, there we go, let's walk into the room. Oh, the light is on, great. All right, let's continue on here and look back. Oh, the light is off, there we go. Super, okay, we have, made things happen here in the game, right? So just with the first person controller and this script, you can see how you can do a whole lot here with just this functionality, right? In terms of I can know when a player gets somewhere, and then I can do things based on that, right? Cool. All right, making sense? All right, let's take it a step further. What time is it? 5:20. Let's save this. Okay, we're going to walk into this room, and then let's go ahead and let's click on some stuff. So the previous on-click collider script gets replaced by input mouse interaction, which does more stuff here. But it allows us to, essentially the other script just did this, right? When we clicked on it, it sent an event, right? Now we're doing a bunch of other things here. So let's do that. So we come in here and we will make a button here that we can click on to open a door. Let's come back to that. Let's look at another way to animate. So animation. Up until now, we've talked about 2 ways. One was using keyframe animation plus the Animator controller, right? And this is what you want to use for complex animations, right? Multi-part complex things, okay? We talked about using physics, right? Which you can get a lot of stuff, quote unquote, for free, but ends up being, in some cases, less controllable, right? Like we had that weird stick problem, which if you're animating keyframes, you wouldn't have that, right? So keep that in mind. Number 3, which is new today, is animating with scripts, right? You can use scripting to move things around. And here, the animation script that's part of the package here is really great for simple looping environmental animations, right? Where if we just want to have something just, you know, floating up and down or slowly spinning, right? Like windmills or whatever, right? Stuff like that. Going in, you know how to do that now with the animation controller, but it is a lot of overhead for a spinning windmill, right? We got to make a animation clip. We got to make an animation controller. We got to go in there and make sure it's looping, so on and so forth, right? It's just, the tool is kind of overkill for that kind of stuff. And so today we introduce this. And let's look at that. So for instance here, let's make a spinning thing just as an example for now. And I'm going to go ahead and reset this. And so let's say like when we open the door, this will be behind the door as we unveil the tesseract behind the door. Is everybody ready for tesseractification? That's a word. Over here, the action, animate, transform. A larger script here, but there's a few things to learn with this one. So what can we do here? We can do, like I said, looping kind of stuff. So we're just gonna make this cube sort of spin around, right? You notice there's a lot of controls here that mimic the sound controls, play on start, loop, right? Whether or not we want those things to happen. The duration of the animation. And so let's just add some animation. This all happens under curve mappings. And so we unfold over here, unfold, and this gives us one animation curve. And you're like, wow, that box is really small. How am I supposed to adjust this? If you click on the box, it opens up into its own, you know, like window here where we can do this. So look at this. This is super flexible, but you need to realize that this is normalized. What does that mean? It means it's between 0 and 1, okay? We want the time to go between 0 and 1, and we want the magnitude to also go between 0 and 1, okay? So for instance here, I'm just going to, let's just leave it as is. So it's gonna, this up and down sine wave is assigned to position Y, and it's gonna go between 0 and 1, offsetting from its current position, right? So the other nice advantage of the script animation is that all of that parent-child stuff that we did to facilitate the animator working correctly, we don't need to worry about here in the same way. So if I just hit play, watch what happens. There we go. Floating up and down, right? As I don't think this is live, is that right? Yeah, okay. So this all calculates at the beginning and the start. So for instance, now that it was going up and down once every second, meaning that this curve is happening once a second. Let's say we want it to go super slow. Let's put this at 5 seconds. And so now it'll do the same animation, but it'll just take 5 seconds to go from the bottom to the top. So quick, right? Once you understand what's happening, it should be fairly quick to do things, right? Now, let's say we want to go further, right? That is our min and max. I'm not going to go in and adjust the curve because the curve, I can't have it go higher. The curve is already at 1, the normalization max. And so here, if I wanted to go up much higher, I can write the max value should be 10. now, let's say we want to, if we duplicate this object, there we go. Because it duplicates everything and the script, you'll see that it's doing the same thing. Easy peasy. As we discussed before, when you duplicate these kind of things, it's really great to have them not be totally synchronized, right? And so that's a fairly easy change here. That's what this is at the top. So yeah, duration randomness allows you to slightly desync some of these things. Right now it's at 0, meaning that they will all be in sync, the same. If we do this, it kind of does what the animation speed script does, so that they each get a slightly different duration. But you need to make sure that's set on all of them. So for instance, if I just delete this one, okay, and now here I have this one, let's make sure that this is turned up a little bit. And so now if I just Control D this one, and hit play. Right, so by having the thing be random when it starts, then duplicating it, and then, I can use the computer as intended for iterative design, duplicate a set of duplicates, I can get to this pretty interesting situation fairly quickly. Cool. Let's explore this a little bit further. Let's make it not quite as far. Let's say 3. There we go. And now I want this to do some fun spinning in addition to moving up and down. And so this, what you need to learn now, like this, we saw this before, this interface element in Unity events, correct? When I want to play a sound and do something else and make this disgusting splat sound. I need to do all those things at the same time. You just keep hitting plus to add more parameters to the events, right? This is a similar construct where we can add more parameters to animate by hitting plus. And so here I'll hit plus, unfold, and assign this to rotation X. And now with rotation, you need to be cognizant that we are in what metric? How do you measure rotation? Degrees, right? And so if we want to spin the whole way around, we have to go to 360, right? So this throws people for a loop. They set it to rotation, and then they leave it at the default, which is 0 and 1, and they think it's not doing anything. It is doing something. It's rotating by 1 degree, right? Like, and you can't see it. And so here we will say 360. There we go. And so now if we hit play on this, why are we freaking out? What do we do there? Because you hit 360? Let's see. Let's see. If this is here, do we want an offset? Let's see, absolute. Let's try it again. We can also turn them on and off. Is it because we're in X or because we're in 2? Let's just test it by itself. That should work. I might be in the wrong space. Let's look here. Expand star, ping pong. Target, duration, randomness curve. I don't think it's running into anything. I don't think we're getting anything over here. That's render business. We're not ping-ponging. We're not delaying. It's going from 0 to 1. No, this is set to local. That's correct. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Let's look in the game view once. It looks weird there too. All right, I'll investigate that bug this evening, because that definitely was working before. Whether it's this project or something else. But we can add things here, we can turn them on and off. We've got this. Let's go back to the just up and down for now, and we'll use that. We've got this on. This is playing. Yeah, and some other events if we wanted to start and stop this. Right now we just want to do some looping stuff. So we have that. Let's put it on 5. And yeah. Okay, so this is what we'll see behind our door. And we'll make a couple of them. Yeah, so this is the other thing. Unity, unlike Blender, if I select multiple objects at the same time and they have the same components. So I shift clicked all these, selected all of them, turn this up. Then I look at them individually. That parameter has changed on all of them. Yeah, on Blender it does it if you hold down Alt. But here, it just does it, which is the desirable effect. And so now, there we go. And yeah, well, this is what we'll see behind the door for now. Something like that. All right, they should be doing the thing that we wanted to do. Cool. And let's give them like a fun, glowy material. So I'll come in here and create new material, and we'll call this glow. Okay, and here we will turn on emission. We will turn this up a little bit and turn on the emission part. And yeah, we should be able to put this on our glowy things. Let's make sure that they look glowy over here. Right, so remember, if they look glowy here and they do not in the game, camera, post-processing. I'll make sure that's checked when I hand it off, so that'll make it a little bit easier for everybody. Yeah, and so I'm do some of these. Cool. And so now they'll be doing their thing. Okay, great. All right, let's make this door with a button. So let's set things up first. over here. I'm going to use this wall and duplicate it and move it over. And let's do something like this. So it'll just be this wall that kind of gets out of our way. There we go. And so when we walk into the room, this will be blocked at first. And then over here, let's get some kind of button. I'm going to grab these things and parent them to create empty parent and fold them up to keep my area neat and clean. This is tesseract thing. There we go. And this is what we'll see when we come into this space. It needs to become our door. And so this is, I used the prefab as a starting point, but now I'm going to do stuff that's not prefab, just specific to this. And so I'm going to grab this prefab, right click and say unpack completely. So it turns it back into a game object. It would no longer inherit the changes, but it keeps everything it had at the moment of unpacking. And we will change this to a door. Excellent. Okay, and so we got door there, and now we can, let's go a little bit further here and make a cylinder. There we go. And I'm just going to use a cylinder for now. This could be, should be a Blender model that we could make something a little bit more bespoke for your scene. Let's do something like this. There we go. And move this over, like so. Okay. And we got the capsule collider there. Good. And so we want this, essentially we want to be able to walk into the room and the light turn on. Mission accomplished, we're done with that. And we'll walk up to this and press the button and have the door open, right? And so individual things, what is going to be the plan here? The door will have the animate transform script on it. And that essentially, we were using it in loop, but it can also receive a play message, right, from a event. And so that's the message it will receive. The button will have the the mouse interaction script. And this one will send an event. This is essentially going to send the play with the on-click event. Let's do it. Okay, first, let's make sure the door can animate up. So I'll grab the action animate transform. We want to go up. And so we don't want to go up and then back down. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete, or actually there's the preset ones down here. And so this one will do our job for us, going from down to up. Select that. There we go. So we have a normalized value, just simply raises from 0 to 1. And we want to go up a little bit bigger. And let's just hit play to see if the door goes up far enough. Probably, let's say 5 here. I think that might be enough. Yeah, that'll be good. It's looping right now. We say no loop. We want it to take longer than that, so it's cool and dramatic. Maybe 4 seconds. And we do not want it to play on start. But actually, I want to test it one more time. And so I'm going to keep play on start here. Again, avoid the big bang. Try to make sure that is the animation working completely. Yes, it played the animation and stopped, right? So it just stops at the end, which is the obvious desirable behavior in this case. So we don't have to wrangle that. So we're good there. The animation is doing exactly what we want, right? Now I'm going to turn off play on start so that this one is ready to receive the play message. Okay, that is working. Let's go to button and let's add, remember the button, anything I click on, anything I interact with is going to need a collider, right? The game needs to know what are the bounds of the interaction plan of the interaction plan here. And so we need to come in here to mouse, input mouse interaction, and let's just test this first. So here, this is the mouse button that we want on click. And so when we click on this collider, if I hit plus, what object, Maya, what object do I want to talk to? This is from the mouse script, and I want to talk to the door, right? And so I can put the door in there, like so. I can save, and then on the door, if you go to Action, Animate, Transform, most of the time when you're using this in a script, you're using this function, the appropriately named play. And so let's do that. We don't have to say play string or whatever because there's not multiple clips here. It's just this one thing. Simple stuff. Let's save. And so now, if we hit play, let's look around. So far, so good. And let's move forward here into the room. Okay, the light's on. Great. Let me look over here. There it is. Okay, and click on this. Let's see. Oh, I know what I didn't do. We need to do one more thing. I did the thing I exactly talked about. Up here, it's now being used as a trigger. So let's turn that on. And I think we're good. Let's see. Yeah, there's we have a separate thing for that, but let's make sure everything else is on here. This. I'm gonna switch this out to mesh to make sure there's no weirdness there.
Also, a big question is that it seems like the trigger, as you explained, does turn off the collisions of the item by you can't physical collisions or something like that.
Right.
Are you able to have it so that it has both its physical collisions on and also the trigger on?
Yeah, in instances like that, you usually are nesting one in the other, right? And so there's like either a top level game object, right? Like so a parent that has a physics shape on it, and then a child that has the interaction stuff on it, right? So you would separate them out like that. Yeah, so there's two, it ends up being two separate components in that case. Okay, that's all on interaction, clever, on click, cover material. I think we're all good there. Let's make sure we're not receiving any messages over here. I think we're good. If we end up with another bug here, we'll switch it out for the other script. Here we go. I'm going to make sure over here. I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure I already checked that box on this one. Where are we? Where am I? Ta-da! So part of the homework this week will be making that sound effect happen when you open the door, right? So either ba-da, or you could use the Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the bum 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 bum, ba ba ba, na-na, right? Anybody know who that composer is? Yeah, everyone knows but do you know who wrote it? It's Strauss, isn't it? Yeah, because the name of it is so fun. Isn't it Strauss? Also Spoke, Zarathustra. Yeah, Strauss. Awesome. Yeah, so not thus, also Spoke, Zarathustra. So if one of the other colliders is giving you problems, checking out the mesh collider may be the way to go here on what we've got going on. Let's see if we can bring it back in. So when you're using the editor, there's the other issue here of, in this case, for the mouse interaction stuff, if you're using the editor in your play mode, if you press, because now we're using the mouse to look around, to do the first person stuff, but I want to go back and adjust Unity, I press escape, and so now the mouse can get out of the window, and then if you press back in here, you'll get control back of this stuff. And so keep that in mind here with this, because now it allows me to click on it. When you build the game, that ends up being, it's just part of using the editor in this case while we're working. Yeah, and then having a crosshair or something for some stuff like this, we'll implement something like that, but not this week. The other thing to keep in mind over here. So from now on, up until now, we've just been doing this over here, right? So like kind of makes it bigger or smaller as we're moving it around, whatever. It's just not very precise. What we want to do, we're making games that are going to happen on PC, on a regular monitor. And so we need to change this to our 1920 by 1080 so that now we have a fixed size. So I go here, and then over here, note, but for some reason it defaults to 1.5. Scale this down to 1 so that you will end up with, I mean, depending on how you have the window configured, you'll end up with some space around here, but now you can be sure about like what is actually going to be on screen when we play the game full screen, right? As opposed to before, with this, it can be very, what you're actually seeing is super dependent on just like how you have the interface set up at that moment. And so switching this to 1920 by 1080, scaling it down to 1 so that you're actually able to see what's happening here. Now that we've got this, remember that trick of going to play maximized? That may be a lot more fun for you because this will actually go full screen here. And now I'll be able to see what's happening. We export and come back here. And there we go. We're able to open the door and come over here and see some cool stuff and continue to walk around. And I could even come through and turn the light on again. Yay, there we go. Right. So now let's say we walk through the door and we want the door to close behind us. What do you think? How, knowing what you know now, what would be a way to solve that problem?
We could make it into a trigger system where like, oh, okay, so if the player has pressed this button and then left, but like they left this area, then it will just close, something like that. At least in like among
Yeah, I mean, we could play this backwards. I think that's a thing I put on here. If not, I'll put it on there. Let's look. Play. What's that?
Maybe set like a timer.
Yeah, you could set a timer. I didn't want to get into those this week. I just wanted to focus on the game, the triggers. Hold on a second. I just want to look at the door and the button, which I need to label. Here it is. Button. And yeah, we've got play and play reverse. So play reverse does a lot of work for us here. So I've got this appropriately named light trigger here, but I mean, I'm going to go ahead and Control D this and move it over here. And I'm going to change this to door, close, trigger, in a way to, again, let's just put it here and there and here. Notice I'm using enter and exit. The on stay when I'm inside, right? That is linked to this. And so we're using these events, and the events happen at specific times, right? What we don't want to do is set up a situation where an event is happening every frame. That's not going to be, that's not how events are intended to be used, okay? And so that is bad. So the system here is designed that on stay by default will not happen every frame. It'll happen at some sort of interval while you're in there. And by default, it'll happen every second. So keep that in mind. This whole system is for game logic that happens in like discrete steps, not stuff that just continuously runs every frame. Okay, so here we've got this one. We want to use this to close the door. And so I'll move it over here so that we would have to walk into it after we walk through the door. And then we are no longer talking to the light. We are when we enter, we want to close the door. So I'll hit plus, and I'll grab the door once again, and I'll talk to the animator, action animate transform once again, and I'll say play reverse. And that should be good. Let's try it again. And so this should make it reconfigurable. Let's see. So I'll come in here. There we go. And light turns on. There we go. And let's open the door. Excellent. Door is open. And walk through the door. There we go. And does the door close behind us? Yes, it is closed. It happened so fast I didn't get to see it. But it is closed. I'll try and do it again. Well, actually, it should. Yeah, everything is reset. And so I can walk around and do it again. And so over here, let's do it again.
There's like a detector where it's like, oh, when it hits the ground after it does its reversal, it'll play like a noise, like a giant thud.
I think we can do that. Let's walk through and turn around. That happened really quickly. Let's see here. It should be playing at the same time. So on the animation, yeah. And so with the door in particular, you have on animation start and on animation loop and on animation complete. So the door closing, you could send an event here to a sound effect, right? And so that would play when it closes, Indiana Jones style, right? one other thing. So let's get a richer sense of what's going on here. Bringing things in from Blender. Actually, let me just... No, we're going to leave that where it is, right? So that everybody has enough to do. Remember, we're off on Monday, right? So you're not here working on stuff. You can be at home working there. So Wednesday, I mean, I'll have everybody make the videos, but we might... yeah, I mean, I have a lot to get through on Wednesday, so we may post them on Discord rather than show them during class because we're, down again another day. We've lost an entire week this semester. It happens usually in spring semester. So, yeah, let's look at a couple other modeling things. Everybody's in a different place here with some of the modeling stuff, right? And so what am I going to want you to do this week? Set up your own situation like this, right? What am I going to want you to do? Make your own modular assets, right? And so we did door, not for, door, pillar, wall, right? You could also do, short wall, rock. What else? Floor piece. Yeah, you could have a ceiling piece. Window gets a little more complicated because you have to cut a hole in the wall to make that work. So you could do wall with window. Right, you get the idea, right? Vestibule, all of these things, right? So you have to make some modular assets, bring those in. What were the things that we wanted to do last time? We wanted to make sure that the anchor point is correct. What was the next thing? Normals are correct. And then what was the last thing, Fitch? What was the last thing we had to do with our assets? We have to blanking them. Blanking them. What do we have to do to our assets before we bring them in, our 3D assets? Yes. UV unwrap them. Right? Then, in order to turn it into a prefab, in most cases here, they're going to need to have colliders, right? And the other issue here is the default scale, okay? And so with the default scale, back here, I explained this last time, but just to review it, right? If I bring in, where is this stuff? Did I put it here? Yeah, modular parts. Okay, and so I've got this one. I'm going to make it a slightly different pillar. Let's undo that. There we go. So yeah, we'll make a new pillar here by grabbing this one, tabbing into edit mode, right? So those of you with a little bit more modeling skills, we could grab the top of this. Move this down. Inset a little bit, extrude up, maybe inset and extrude up, and then maybe bring it out. So when you go the other way here, I like to extrude up a little bit and then scale it out and then extrude up. There you go. So I've got some other shape I want to use here, right? So this is like a pillar 2. Right, as a way to add more richness to my environment. Sure, maybe I know it's going to be rockish later, so I'm going to grab these edges here, Alt-click, Shift-Alt-click, and then bevel those a little bit. Give it one extra rounding there.
So does our project, does it have to be themed to have pillars
it's not required that it be a castle. It needs to be something that you can execute. Okay? So, I mean, not saying this only to you. I'm saying it to the whole class, right? So, again, are you going to have lots of ideas that you can't 3D model yet? Yeah. Okay? So you need to filter your ideas until you get to one where you're like, okay, well, I think I could do this, this, and this here, and that'll work, right? So keep that in mind. The assignment is not like, okay, well, I'm going to make the next Cyberpunk game by next Wednesday. That's not what we're doing, right? So, yeah, it doesn't have to be castle theme. The castle theme thing, works fairly well here. Okay, anyways, I beveled these. I've got some sort of column I can use here as a separate column. Be interesting. And so let's run the gamut on this, or the gauntlet. The anchor point is good. It's at the center bottom of this piece. That's good. The normals, let's turn on the viewer. Yep, no red showing, so we're good there. Let's UV unwrap it. And so I'll come over to the UV editing, grab all of the different things here, press U, and then go down to Smart UV Project and unwrap that. Cool. All right, that gives me a usable UV map for this thing. That's good. And so now we are ready to export this using the Unity Blender delivery kit package, right? Don't please use that, okay? And so here, I'm just gonna put this on the desktop for right now and accept that. And I have a pillar, we'll call this pillar 2 is done, and we will say export. And so now, when I bring this into Unity, this is the important part. Again, I need to do that in this irritating way because I can't drag it in. So I'll say import something from the desktop, pillar 2. Let's bring it in. There it is, pillar 2. Put it into my modular folder where all my stuff is. Now, check this out. I drag it into my game. It's underwhelming. I want the default size to be bigger, right? If I look over here, that's good. I could fix this by scaling it up, but at that point, you should have alarms going off in your head and maybe hearing me in your mind saying, don't do that, right? Instead, you want to change the default size of the asset. And so you come into here, select it, and then under scale factor, I want my default pillar to be like 3 times the size of this. And so I change the model scale factor to 3 and press apply. Ah, that is an impressive pillar. Look at that. Truly gargantuan. Now I can apply materials to it and put, what kind of collider do I want on this? Is my character going to jump up into these empty areas here? Probably not, right? And so the capsule will probably get the job done on this one, and just to keep us from running into the base of this thing, right? Like, are we going to have to, no, we're not. Don't do that, is the message here, right? And so now I've got this, and pillar 2 is ready to get prefabbed, right? And so now I've got pillar 2 prefab that I could use to stage the epicness of my Tesseract reveal scene. And so when I walk in to this, I am awed with the scale and magnitude of what I have created. Right. Was that necessary? I don't know. There's probably yeah. We'll just say that we don't want the player to go back and get other keys that are behind that or whatever, right? Cool. Sound good? So I'll have you make like 5 different modular assets that you're able to use to make, some sort of experience that you walk through. You got to be able to open a door. You got to maybe turn on some lights. Feel free to add some 2D assets in there. Perhaps like putting sticky notes on things. For right now, doing that as a sprite, right? Just making the sticky note sprite, bringing it in, make a child of the door. That's the best way to go about that. There's a whole other system for doing things on top of the models called decals. We don't need to get into that this week. Soundtrack, right? When we reveal the epic thing, we want to have epic sound there. And then, for the love of God, turn down your computer audio in the recordings for next week so that when it is revealed, we can hear what you're saying. Sound good? Yeah. Okay, awesome. This will be super fun. Remember, no school on Monday. No school on Monday. It is President's Day. Celebrate your favorite president.